Who is our companion? With whom do we associate? Who do we spend most of our time mingling with, interacting with, listening to, enjoying their company? There's a saying, show me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. You have that pretty much in every language that I've encountered. So life is supposed to be lived by us, yet oftentimes we don't find our own company pleasant enough. So we bring in things, people, activities, environments, events, where we don't feel alone, where we don't feel like we are isolated. There's nothing wrong with that. The fact that you like to have some company. Sociologists talk about us human beings being social beings. We need to interact with others. We need to grow through the coming into tiny little, frictions here and there. Some are minor, some are slight, some are quite powerful. And all these interactions make us who we are. The Buddha realized this, saw the value of this thing called companion or companionship. And we see his own explanation of the importance to be given to companions. Throughout the discourses, we see so many examples where the individuals with whom we interact, spend our time with, think about, communicate with, oftentimes have more of a say in how we behave in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions, than our own thoughts, our words, our own actions in a vacuum. We think that we are oftentimes making decisions based on our own willingness to make that particular decision. However, we neglect to consider the importance of those characters that have been working to chisel and sculpt our views on things. Now, these can be external, like in the form of actual people, beings in your life, or even ideologically, people you hear about, people that move you, people that inspire you, or trigger some feelings in you. Many people have never met, majority of us have never met on this planet Stalin or Hitler or Napoleon, the historical figures. Yet we have distinct feelings towards these characters. They can impact our behavior, in fact, our ways of reaching conclusions about life, decision making, even though we've never met them. People on the news, people that we find ourselves get triggered by, all these can be seen as companionships. So the time that we spend listening to, be influenced by individuals that are not taking actual physical part of our lives with. We're not interacting with them personally, yet there are those who do, like the close associations or friends, family, acquaintances. In the Mangala Sutta, the Buddha talks about, the first verse starts with, to know, identify who to associate with and who not to, as the very criterion to attain happiness, good fortune, and specifically to avoid the foolish companions and to learn to respect and look forward to spending time with, interacting with wise companions, to be able to distinguish the differences between these two is huge. It is like being on the fast track to happiness, and it's immediate when we avoid the companionship of a fool. A fool doesn't mean someone who's an idiot necessarily, but anyone that can get us away from the path of happiness and what it is that we want to accomplish in life. So today's sutta is about companionships. It is Sevanā Sutta from the Anguttara Nikāya, and it is from the Book of the Nines, Navaka Nipāta, and it is Sutta number 9.6, AN 9.6, Sevanā Sutta, Companionships. Here we're going to see Venerable Sāriputta this time instructing his fellow bhikkhus, his fellow monks, on the importance of companionships. Who are our associates? You'll see how he makes a clear distinction between those, let's call them friends, that lead us astray, and those that we should go to and spend our time to learn from, to grow with, to be challenged by. But because we are lazy by nature, even a cup of water, when you pour it down a mountain, it's not going to go up, it's going to go down. It's part of entropy, right? Second law of thermodynamics. It will look for the path of least resistance. It will look for the easiest way down the mountain. And that's an inanimate thing, abiotic phenomenon, water. But in the case of us, organisms, higher thinking, etc., organisms, we are no different when it comes to seeking the easy way. Whatever comes natural, we call it natural, but it's not. Whatever comes easy, we're looking for shortcuts. So as we're going through the descriptions of what constitutes, what makes up a good friend versus a bad one, challenge yourself, and including yourself into that category of, am I a good friend, first of all, to myself? Am I a good companion to myself? How about those people that I interact with? Are they good companions to me? Or am I seeking the path of least resistance? We're going to see how important it is for a friend, a true friend, to challenge us, to challenge our narratives, to challenge what really is it that we find to be fulfilling in our lives? Because we live in the realm of Mara, we live in the realm of deception. So a true companion is one who works to remove the veil of deception, even if those veils are set up by ourselves to blind ourselves. So in a culture where it's all about the other, it's all about seeking shortcuts, sticking our head into the sand and pretending that we're not seeing, we're not feeling, we're basically going after pleasure. And the companionship that we get from individuals who give us the least resistance don't challenge us in the form of telling us truthfully what is really going on, instead of hiding it from us, drugging us. And if we can withstand such companionships, then we can grow. Because this path is about attaining Nibbana, but that's not going to just happen without us doing the work. One huge part of doing the work is developing yoniso manasikara, wise attention, wise reflective attention, seeing things as they are, despite all the mirage or the fogginess of things that we've created, the narratives and all that, with which we can lie to ourselves and the world. So a true companion is one that will move through the fog and pull our necks out, yank us out of there, which is very uncomfortable if we are very attached to false beliefs. So yoniso manasikara is all about right view. Right view. So here we see the importance of the companion, specifically in terms of developing yoniso manasikara, to hold you accountable, to remind you of your precepts, even if they don't say it verbally out loud to you, but simply because you observe them maintaining a virtuous life, that moves you, that inspires you. You need that kind of friend next to you, around you, to be inspired by, to keep you on track, not look for shortcuts. But in a world where we're always exposed to being drugged by ideas and actual drugs as a society, not only are we not exposing ourselves to honest truth, we even get uncomfortable hearing anyone speak about those things. So we go and be like an ostrich, stick our head into the sand. So see if you could locate yourself in the sutta. And more importantly, to identify the companions and the importance of having a companion, because this path cannot be possible without having the right companionship. Even though it is a solitary journey when you do the work on yourself, but the companions are wonderful when and if and when we find them. And we have plenty of them, by the way, in the suttas. As we will see, one of the most notable ones, Venerable Sāriputta, today in this talk, in this sutta. So, this comes from the Anguttara Nikāya, which are the collection of numerical discourses. As I mentioned, it's from the Book of the Nines, Navaka Nipāta, and it's sutta number AN 9.6, Sevanā Sutta, Companionships. Let's begin. Once the Venerable Sāriputta addressed the bhikkhus and said, "Friends, bhikkhus." "Yes, friend," those bhikkhus replied. And the Venerable Sāriputta continued by saying, "Friends, There are two kinds of people that you must recognize: those you must associate with and those you must avoid and never associate with at all. Friends, there are two kinds of robes that you must recognize: those you could wear and those that you must not wear at all. Friends, there are two kinds of alms food that may be offered: those that you could accept and eat, and those that you must avoid and not touch at all. Friends, there are these two kinds of housing you may be offered: those that you can use and stay in, and those that you must avoid and not set foot in. Friends, there are these two kinds of towns or villages that are resorted to for support: those that you can approach and visit, and those that you must avoid and not set foot in. Friends, there are these two kinds of countries or regions: those that you could visit and stay in, and those that you must avoid and not go near. So it's pretty, black and white. So Venerable Sāriputta was known for his discerning abilities. He was second only to the Buddha in that, in being so wise. So he would delineate, he would clarify. He was the perfect, if there was a PowerPoint, he was the living PowerPoint. He would use it, he would break it down, he would put all these proper boxes and delineate perfect graphs for the person to understand, bite chunks. So he listed all the things that a bhikkhu needs. These are parts and parcel, basically, of the requisites that we have. Aside from the companions, one might choose to live alone, yes, in the jungle, in the forests, all by himself, but we need the others, like robes, food, etc. So he's getting into details now, because not everybody was coming to the Sangha. Not everybody was practicing for the right reasons, as you've heard me say many, many times, and we've seen so many examples throughout the discourses. But it always is helpful to get a clear definition as to what is meant when Lord Buddha, let's say, tells a bhikkhu, don't go to this house, don't stand in front of that place, or don't go into that town, that village. Out of respect, you might listen and you might just follow as instructed, but there might be a lingering doubt or question as to why. So it's always appreciated when we have a clear definition in detail, whether it's from Lord Buddha himself, which we see many, many examples throughout the Nikāyas, and from other teachers or his students, in this case, Venerable Sāriputta. So let's look deeper into what he means by each. Now, what was meant by the statement? Friends, there are two kinds of people that you must recognize: those you must associate with and those you must avoid and never associate with at all. You might come to know someone about whom you reflect thus: every time I associate with this person, I notice that unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas wholesome and good merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Also, as a result of my association with this person, I notice how the monastic requisites, which I need as a recluse to sustain myself, such as the robes I use, the alms food I eat, the housing, and the medical necessities for me to use also, all become difficult to acquire and very hard to come by, with resources dwindling. So he's presenting, in a sense, it's a vignette. It's these are some of the thoughts that the person ponders. So, but you need to ask yourself, okay, when I interact with this person, do I notice the good qualities within me dropping, diminishing? Good qualities, remember, it could also be, actually, not just also, but primarily your mindfulness. Do you leave it at the door? Your precepts, your adherence to maintaining your virtuous life. Do you, is it still there? Is it being fanned, in fact, by the presence of this friend of yours, this companion, or who you are associating with? Or do you notice you're pushing away sati as much as you can so that you can interact with him or her to talk about certain things that, yeah, but sati, you stand over there, just sit outside. I'll come back to you later. How about the breath? Are you with the breath? Do you even recall why you're practicing? In this case, why you're a bhikkhu. Remember, many bhikkhus in those days, as well as today, have more of an enjoyment when it comes to politics, about who has the bigger army, who's going to win. If there's a war, who's going to win? Just like in those days, today we have that. Just like today, we had it then as well, the bhikkhus. So the interactions say a lot about the companions with whom we are having these interactions. So similarly, it trickles down to the resources that we get, because if you're going into a store to buy, let's say, some food, and you have all kinds of flies coming around or landing on it, are you going to purchase that because it's got all kinds of vermin and all kinds of different nasty stuff there infesting that food, versus one that is kept safe and protected from such things? So similarly, when a person is offering you wholeheartedly adana, generosity, they will also see if there's flies all over you. Who do you associate with? How Dhammic is your life? How virtuous are you? Which will translate into getting more or less of your requisites. There's that criterion as well to consider. And he continues, furthermore, the main objective and goal of the holy life, for which I have willingly and with faith gone forth from the lay life into homelessness, suddenly seems harder to achieve, as its fulfillment constantly escapes me. And thus, what is yet to be attained and realized becomes much more difficult, if not impossible, to attain. So this is the person asking oneself, like, this is a moment of confrontation, like seeing and saying things the way they are without, adding anything to it, faking anything. You're being very candid with yourself, honest with yourself. Now, if this is the case, then get up and leave without thinking twice. Remember, he's talking about when I'm associating with this person, these things are happening. And then he says, if these are the thoughts that you're having, these are the factual events that are taking place in your life, then he says, if this is the case, then get up and leave without thinking twice. Whether it is in the dead of the night, or during any time of the day, quickly and immediately walk away from such a person without even saying a word or asking their permission. In this way, you must never again associate with such a character. This is, for many people, heavy. Oh, but I can't do that. Bhante, why not? Well, because he or she makes me feel this way, or, well, I have a roof over my head. You don't want me to be caught outside under the rain without any shelter. Why are you in robes in the first place? To seek shelter? Is that the reason why you're in robes? Then we got our priorities all messed up. Is it because of food? Well, yeah, the food here, they have a very good chef, Bhante, here in this monastery. So I have to, I don't want to eat McDonald's or fast food. They have good, decent food here. So I should, as they say, stick it out and just push through and just persevere in the wrong companionships. No, get up and leave. Why? Because your very core is being threatened. You are losing grip with reality, with the purpose of life as to why you're in robes, why you're practicing. Now, again, remember, this is a bhikkhu talking to other bhikkhus. Please do not think, well, I'm not a bhikkhu. I'm a layperson. So this is irrelevant. No, it is absolutely 100% relevant to you. So you don't have to think of it as a specific to bhikkhus here. Again, every sutta has to do with you. The Dhamma is all about you. Whether you're in a bhikkhu's robes or a layman's attire, laywoman's attire. Because we all face these types of situations where you're no longer living in truth of what you hold valuable in your life, living honestly with your life, being joyous with your life, being unburdened by guilt in your life. That's the highest form of that is the life of a bhikkhu, ideally. But that's for everyone. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be without suffering. Lord Buddha did not teach the Dhamma only for bhikkhus. Remember that. Suffering exists for everyone. Everyone, that is, who's not yet broken free into arahantship. But suffering is what we all face. So the Dhamma then is the medicine for every one of us. So is my companionship with this person perpetuating, lengthening my suffering, increasing it, proliferating my sadness, my sorrow, my pain, my grief? Do I find myself back to square one? Like as if I'm going in loops and then just continuously in suffering. If that's the case, get up and leave. Make a change in your life. That's what Venerable Sāriputta is saying in the context of a bhikkhu here. Again, this has 100% relevancy to your life as well. Because we all have companionships here and there. At the very least, we have our own narratives, our own thoughts, our own concepts. We're like this with our concepts, aren't we? We're tied at the waist, the ball and chain, with our narratives, our perceptions, our ideas. However, friends, he continues, if you come to know of someone about whom you reflect thus, every time I associate with this person, I notice that wholesome and good merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Also, as a result of my association with this person, I notice how the monastic requisites which I need as a recluse to sustain myself, such as the robes I use, the alms food I eat, the housing, and medical necessities for me to use also, all become available and very easy to come by with resources in abundance. Furthermore, the main objective and goal of the holy life, for which I have willingly and with faith gone forth from the lay life into homelessness, suddenly seems easier to achieve, as its fulfillment constantly gets closer and closer, whereby I am able to attain and realize that which was not yet attained or realized, and thus I am steadily developing in my practice. Now, if this is the case, friends, then you must stay with such a true spiritual friend without thinking twice. In this way, you must associate with and not leave such companions in the holy life, even if they reject and want to send you away or even try and throw you out. Imagine someone kicking you out of their company and you're like, no, I'm going to stay here. How many of us can actually do that? You have to have a compelling reason to, as they say, swallow your pride and say, no, I've lived my life like that outside forever. I found something rare, truly rare. I'm going to stay here, even if he or she kicks me out. Humility is necessary. You know, when the blacksmith is pounding away with a heavy sledgehammer on the metal thing that he's building, pulling it out of the oven, red hot metal, and he's slamming away with his sledgehammer, that piece of metal doesn't turn around and say, hey, go easy on me. Stop it. You're bending me. Are we such characters? Because that's what society is wanting us to be, softies. To this day, people think that the Lord Buddha was a softie. Always. Or a bhikkhu is supposed to be. When we see something wrong, we just have to smile and say, let's live harmoniously. Let's just avoid confronting this situation. No, we have rules for that. We have to have consideration and decency to say what needs to be said. Now, when that thing is being said to us, do we run to the hills because we got a little bit uncomfortable? But remember what I was saying about a true associate, true friend. They are honest. So long as they're coming from a virtuous place, the way that they're delivering their message of truth might rub us the wrong way, as they say. But there we have to be wise enough to ask, to see, am I trying to run away to somewhere that's more comfortable? Am I still seeking the easy way out, the path of least resistance? Or am I, if by doing so, am I running away from the truth, from facing the reality of the facts? Is the intention behind them saying this, pointing this out, to crush me, to have me fit their mold? We have a lot of that today. Or is it a fact that they have no benefit at all? They might even be losing a friendship, and knowingly they're saying their truth to help us find the right path. That's a good companion, because the last portion, the last example there is one who is encouraging us to also live virtuously. It's inevitable. How many of us have such companions in life? We're always wanting to have fun. Fun usually means wasting time, deceiving ourselves, sleeping, daydreaming, while life is passing by as we're enjoying the fruits of yesterday, the good karmic results that we're enjoying now. There's no physical pain. There's no emotional pain, life, social pain. So we think that, yeah, this is right. This is right. No, you're just using up all the credits from yesterday's fare. A true friend will remind you of this. And that's why exposure to the Dhamma is extremely helpful, because not every one of us has such companions. So listening to the Dhamma talks, listening or reading the suttas, interacting with the teachers, as here the case is with Venerable Sāriputta, puts you back on track. Even if there are no physical entities out there whom you might call Venerable Sāriputtas, nevertheless, the words are there for us to get ourselves on track. So he says, even if they throw you out, send you away, stay put. In this way, friends, you must recognize and distinguish between these two kinds of people: those you must associate with and those you must avoid and not associate with at all. Therefore, this is the reason for me to have made that statement to you earlier. And what was meant by the statement? Friends, there are two kinds of robes that you must recognize: those you could wear and those that you must not wear at all, you might obtain a certain kind of robe, about which you reflect thus. Every time I wear this robe, I notice that unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas wholesome and good merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Now, if this is the case, then you must never wear those robes again. Remember, robes for a bhikkhu, but it could be clothing for you. It could be an object that you hold dear. How do you know you're holding it dear? Are you becoming a different person when you're putting it on? Are you becoming less in your value system that with which you hold yourself as a person? You value yourself. Are you becoming more vain? That's another way of looking at it. On the other hand, friends, if you obtain another set of robes about which you reflect thus, every time I wear this robe, I notice that wholesome and good merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Then if this is the case, you must use and wear those robes. The second one. In this way, friends, you must recognize and distinguish between these two kinds of robes, those you could wear and those that you must not wear at all. Therefore, this is the reason for me to have made that statement to you earlier. It could be anything. It could be, like in this case, it's the robes. Because for bhikkhus, robes, we might not think of it when we are lay people, but once after ordaining, you have to take care of your robes. We have to, fix it. We have to mend it, this and that. And then you see another bhikkhu over there, another monastic wearing some nice nice robes, where people make comments about, oh, that's a nice robe. What happens to you in your mind? Because even though we don't have status symbols like actual, brooches or symbols like insignia for us bhikkhus to wear, Lord Buddha made it a point that he, instituted such rules. So the more basic, the better. But then you see people are people because the vanity still is there. So you have individuals who would come to Lord Buddha and say, well, what about this? Because I have rich friends or rich parents, they brought this, it's like made of silk, made of these fancy materials, their embroidery, this and that, embellishments. Some people show up with tassels. So basically all of these things are vanity based. Same thing with chairs and things like that, like a king's throne. You probably have seen Dhamma talks of some bhikkhus, some teachers in Asia usually, where the chair itself, it's like carved by, I don't know, I haven't seen the series Game of Thrones or, things like that, but incredibly ornate, carved by 40,000 sculptors and engravers and jewelers and this and that. And that puny little character, usually chubby, sitting there on the throne, giving a Dhamma talk on humility. Are you kidding me? Then no one is, you're sitting in the room, in the smack dab in the center of that room, there's a big elephant and no one's talking about it. That's the situation, basically. So if you are one of those good companionship to that bhikkhu, you could turn out and say, excuse me, Bhante, what is this? How many times do we see Lord Buddha sitting in a throne like that? And when the Dhamma is present, we are all humbled. Remember, even Lord Buddha would bow his head to the Dhamma. No one's higher than that. So let the Dhamma sit on that throne. I won't be sitting there. That is the proper attitude for the bhikkhu to have. So he says, then don't use that robe if it's bringing up vanity. However, if it's not, if it's humbling you, if it's making you feel good, if it's reminding you of, let's say, Venerable Mun, Wangpu Man, if it's reminding you of Venerable Nyanananda, if it's reminding you of Venerable Revata, if it's reminding you of Venerable Mahakachana or Mahakassapa or Lord Buddha, it's a wonderful thing. You're connected there. Not by the robes. The robes aren't important. The robes, what they're triggering in you. A good monk would see, they were supposed to be initially pieces of rags and things, cremation ground, or like Ajahn Mun would use his toes, big toe and other toes, to see if there's anybody looking at the piece of cloth in the trash. And then if he pulled it aside to a little bit out, and he would pull away to see if there's anybody who might come rushing and say, hey, that's my rag. And he would then slowly move it with his toes a few feet and then wait, because it's discarded. It belongs to no one, but he's still trying his best to make sure whether he's wrong. What he's also working with is whether there is any vanity, any possessiveness, because part of the brain might come in and say, oh, that's a nice little piece of rag. It's soiled, it's dirty, but hey, it doesn't have any holes in it. I could use that to patch up my rope. So now there might be that attachment developing. So the job of the bhikkhu is to make sure that he's watching not the piece of cloth, but his mind vis-a-vis the cloth, towards, in relation to. And then after he's walked a few hundred feet, he'll pick it up with his toes and shake it off, maybe wash it, and then take it to the monastery and then really wash it, boil it, this and that, clear up any type of dirt and excess, smell or anything. And then, if it's appropriate, he would use it to patch up his robes with. But even that could turn for somebody, let's say, into a source of vanity, or a trigger for vanity to arise, rather. But then you have somebody else, let's say, like right before Lord Buddha's death, the layperson, Pukkusati, he came in, he was very wealthy, and after he heard the beautiful Dhamma talk from Lord Buddha, he was so inspired, and he goes and gets 2 very, very fancy robes. And he offers them to Lord Buddha, and Lord Buddha accepts them, but then Venerable Ananda comes and Lord Buddha offers them those 2 robes. And Venerable Ananda says, Bhante, this is too much. I'll accept one of them. And Lord Buddha didn't even have the strength to put him, the robes upon himself. So Venerable Ananda helped him out. Beautiful image there. So the robes don't matter ultimately. They just keep away the flies, the insects, creepy crawly things, the wind, the sun, protect you. That's it. But our relationship to the things, in this case, it was the robe. Let's move on and see what comes next. You might obtain a certain kind of alms food about which you reflect thus. Every time I eat or partake of this kind of alms food, I notice that unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas wholesome and good merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Now, if this is the case, then you must not eat or partake of that kind of alms food ever again. Delicious, I don't know, desserts or your favorite food that you like to eat pulls you. Remember, everything we use as bhikkhus in this case, especially, specifically, must be directed towards the mind, finding out what's happening, not with the food. The outside things are just triggers for us to have sati or to be pulled into it and be lost in it. Remember, in this case, the food is our companion. What kind of a companionship is that? if it gets me off track, if it makes me lose focus, if it makes me lose sati. The Lord Buddha had delicious uh, food offered to him every time he went to individuals' homes who invited him and the bhikkhus. Kings, royalty, rich people, Anathapindika. He will have 20, 30, 50 different courses, just a meal. And then the desserts come in, or the different drinks. We can't even imagine the kind of food that they had. But Lord Buddha did not leave his sati inside the bowl or out the door. Every time he ate a grain of rice, his teeth or his tongue, every time they touched a grain of rice, they touched it with sati. No grain of rice went down his throat without being touched by sati. So how can such a mind be mesmerized by the quality of the deliciousness of the food? You have other things going for you. You have other work that you're doing. You're mindful of the taste. Lord Buddha was very aware. His senses worked perfectly. So he had what you have, what we have. Gustatory perception. You can taste. He could taste the sour from the pungent, from the salty, from the sweet, from the sour, etc. So you don't go numb, but you're aware fully, and you're not pulled in. On the other hand, friends, if you obtain another kind of alms food about which you reflect thus, every time I eat or partake of this kind of alms food, I notice that wholesome and good merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Then, if this is the case, you must eat and partake of that kind of alms food. In this way, friends, you must recognize and distinguish between these two kinds of alms food, those you could accept and eat, and those that you must avoid and not touch at all. Therefore, this is the reason for me to have made that statement to you earlier. I remember on some of the retreats I used to attend as a layman years ago, I would notice what's happening in my mind before. You get up, that time they hit the bell or the gong, and now you're walking to the food area, and you see what's happening in the mind. But then you also get a glimpse of what's happening around you. People start rushing to get, in line because some of the food that's coming in, well, they have limited resources. Let's say some places, so the rice is going to go down, the curry is going to go down, or this, or what if it's a pizza and you're in the middle of Southeast Asia, and that's a rarity. Oh, or some, I don't know, fried chicken or fish or durian. I liked durian, and I saw a bowl came in of durian, and I saw people going at it. Just, some of the people who knew what it is. Now, and I saw it just went. It just got destroyed. No durian was left. And the mind was working. It's like, oh, how could they? How could they? Come on, they could have left at least a little bit for me. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is it. The retreat has to continue in the lunchroom. As you're going to your kuti, as you're going back to the restroom. Oh, they got the best spot over there. I was supposed to sit there by the window. The biggest the most powerful companions are the thoughts we keep in our mind. That's where all the action is. They dictate the kind of friends we're going to have on the outside, in the outside world, after all, right? So it doesn't have anything to do with the food ultimately, other than, I mean, once we make sure that you're getting sufficient food, of course. No one's saying go eat unhealthy food or insufficient food and you're going to be fine. Because food is it's one of the aharas, the first one, right? Nourishment. But we shouldn't be slaves to it. But remember, this is the middle path. It's there to support us, to give us strength so that we can continue practicing, continue living happily, continue working to diminish suffering from ourselves and the world. So the food is simply there as a companion that comes in, supports us, and then that's it. That's why you're not going to find bags or backpacks full of food on the back of a bhikkhu. That's not the objective. Food is there to support, and that's it. Otherwise, it's just a burden. Now you're going to think about, how am I going to get this out of me? Because what if you have constipation? Now, good luck. It's going to affect your sit. So it's a burden, ultimately, aside from the nutritional value, and that's it. And what was meant by the statement, friends, there are these two kinds of housing you may be offered, those that you can use and stay in, and those that you must avoid and not set foot in. You might be offered a kind of housing for you to stay in, about which you reflect thus. Every time I stay in this place, I notice that unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas wholesome and good merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. When we say good merit-making, we're talking about the term in Pali is punya. Whenever you're getting good results, being in this body as a human being, being able to process, understand with rationale, healthy functioning body, that means you have done plenty of good merit-making actions, deeds in your past. Now, the bad things that happen to us, a certain percentage of them in our lives are the results of bad or demerit-making actions, meaning unwholesome, unskillful actions for which we have to deal with the consequences. Sometimes they happen quickly, very immediate, some quickly or slower rather than being so immediate, and some that happen during the lifetime, that same lifetime. And many, many, many more happen throughout the stretch of samsara, in many lifetimes later, maybe, depending on the constituent conditions that would bring them about. So that is the Dhammic part. I wanted to, because it's a big, long theme, rather deep conversation worthy. But I just wanted to touch on that. What some might have question about, what does that mean? Good merit-making qualities. That's what it is. Punya, which deals with kamma, action, intentionally committed actions, however. Okay, so you do have control over the action. Kammically speaking, not every action you commit will have the signature of your intention. That's why most actions will not be coming back with a consequence, unless you have touched it, did it with intention, with your volition, what we call cetana. So, the side note. Now he says, so anytime that you stay in such a place, good merit-making qualities diminish and vanish, and bad tendencies come up, basically. Now, if this is the case, then as soon as possible, you must leave and never stay in such a place ever again. On the other hand, friends, if you are offered another kind of housing for you to stay in, about which you reflect thus, every time I stay in this place, I notice that wholesome and good merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Then if this is the case, you must stay in that kind of housing that is being provided for you. In this way, friends, you must recognize and distinguish between these two kinds of housing. those that you can use and stay in, and those that you must avoid and not set foot in. Therefore, this is the reason for me to have made that statement to you earlier. Sometimes we, look to go to, let's say, I used to do this a lot when I was a layman, looking for places to go and do retreats, whether it was solo retreat or, in a group with some teacher or someone. And then you see these brochures that come up, either digitally or actual brochures. And they're trying to sell you the retreat center. And sometimes they're really wonderful. Other times they're not so wonderful. So if you notice that, once you do go to the place, that a retreat place or a center or something like that, a place like that, where you notice that now you're just mesmerized by the place, by the sights. You'll start looking for your phone to take pictures of the place so that you can send images or at least have them later to, reminisce. Again, just like in the case of food, the robes, similarly. There was once a bhikkhu who, against Lord Buddha's advice, he insisted on going to an area that looked so beautiful. There was lotuses, there was a pond, basically, and there was a mango grove that he wanted to go and sit and meditate. He says, Bhante, yeah, but Lord Buddha said, now is not the time. I need you here by my side. He was alone. And the bhikkhu said, no, Bhante, you're fine. You can manage. If you need water, if you need to go to the bathroom, you're fine. I mean, let me go and sit over there. And after 3 times, the bhikkhu still insists, and Lord Buddha says, then you do what you need to want to do. And he goes and he spends several hours there, but he can't meditate. So he rushes back to the Buddha and he says, oh, I couldn't for some reason. He says, see, I told you. The energy of that place was distracting him, was making him agitated. He couldn't even sit for 1 millisecond. So again, we have to be mindful of what is it that I want to get out of this experience. So the method, if you notice the pattern, the formula here is this thing increasing the wholesome qualities in me? Is my practice going deeper? Am I gaining more insight, more wisdom out of this interaction? Or is my ego being caressed, pampered? Is there a difference between me as a practitioner and me being out there in the world and enjoying company, music, this, that, laughter, just like any other putujjana? Is this making me walk away from putujjanahood, from being a putujjana, a mere unlearned person who doesn't know the Dhamma, who doesn't really live for the Dhamma? Is this taking me away from that to a state of bliss, happiness, wisdom, kindness, virtue? And then you make a decision based on that. You don't lie to yourself any further. And what was meant by the statement, friends, there are these 2 kinds of towns or villages that are resorted to for support. Those that you can approach and visit, and those that you must avoid and not set foot in. You might resort to a town or village to find support, about which you reflect thus. Every time I pass by or visit this town or village, I notice that unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas wholesome and good merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Now, if this is the case, then you must not frequent or visit such towns or villages ever again. On the other hand, friends, if you resort to other towns or villages to find support, about which you reflect thus. Every time I pass by or visit this town or village, I notice that wholesome and good merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Then, if this is the case, you could pass by or visit such towns or villages in the future. In this way, friends, you must recognize and distinguish between these two kinds of towns or villages that are resorted to for support. Those that you can approach and visit, and those that you must avoid and not set foot in. Therefore, this is the reason for me to have made that statement to you earlier. There's, when I used to live in the US, in California, specifically Los Angeles, there were certain areas that, I didn't want to go. And they were posh areas, they were very affluent, and friends I had at the time, we're talking about like over 3 decades ago. But I would go with them sometimes and I would feel like I need to leave. I would look for a bookstore, somewhere that I could go and just throw myself in the book section on themes that I was interested in. Looking up, what suttas do they have? Do they have new publication of this or that sutta or this? And sometimes people say, well, we have to go and we have to sit over there. There's a nice restaurant, this and that, and there's a lot happening, this and that. And sometime around that time, I think also one time a person invited me, he said, oh, we have to go to Las Vegas. It's like, why? Why? The examples are many for each of us, I'm sure, where we go somewhere, we don't feel we belong there. The energy is different. Even though everybody's talking so highly of such a place, they might be traveling from around the world to get there. I had a cousin, he flew 10,000 kilometers to get to Las Vegas so he could see the lights and this. And I was like, why? Similarly, with the places we find ourselves in, it could be a neighborhood in your own town. Always check to see, is this bringing up certain things? And there's also the vibes of the people. Do you find yourself as a minority in your thinking, in your drive, in your mission, which at the very least, at the bare minimum should be, am I holding on to sati? Is sati there? Am I keeping company with my breath? Or is this thing coming to strip me away from it? Something's up. We have to find that place that gives us the sense of fulfillment, lasting fulfillment. On the other hand, friends, if you go to or stay in a certain country or region, I think, and what was meant by the statement, I think I might have skipped this part. Every time I come to or stay in this country or region, I notice that unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities seem to rise and increase within me, whereas wholesome and good merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Now, if this is the case, then you must leave that country or region immediately and not go or stay there ever again in the future. On the other hand, friends, if you go to or stay in a certain country or region, so this is not just a town anymore, we're talking about an entire region, about which you reflect thus: every time I come to or stay in this country or region, I notice that wholesome and good merit-making qualities seem to arise and increase within me, whereas unwholesome and bad merit-making qualities diminish and just vanish. Then if this is the case, you must go to or stay in such a country or region frequently. In this way, friends, you must recognize and distinguish between these two kinds of countries or regions: those that you could visit and stay in, and those that you must avoid and not go near at all. Therefore, this is the reason for me to have made that statement to you earlier. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. If you noticed, nowhere in these descriptions did Venerable Sāriputta say, go and ask your friends what they think you should be feeling while going to this village or town or this region or country or this robe or this using this, or going and eating this food in this house. Nowhere did he say, go ahead and ask others. This requires honesty from each of us to be, as they say, brutally honest in English. Why? Because everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got an opinion into how we're supposed to live our lives, what we're supposed to think. Except for us, we are usually the last person to be considered. So he's saying, you need to sit down with yourself and ask, do unwholesome qualities within me increase if I do this, if I go here, if I eat this, if I use this kind of robe, if I sleep in this kind of place, if I go to this kind of town? Do they increase? How is my stability of mind? Can I attain samadhi as easily or at all than if I did somewhere else, compared to somewhere else? So this is key for us to really look at. And you can't do that without honesty. Otherwise, you're simply seeing what other people want you to see, want you to experience. And many of us have lived our whole entire life like that. We're not free. So a true companion is someone who allows you, to be free, even from their opinion, if it doesn't serve the mission of your life, of your heart, to be really without ignorance, to live without pain, to live without suffering. That's liberation, because you're liberating yourself from what? Not necessarily the companionships, but you're releasing yourself, you're liberating yourself from your false views, from your wrong views, from telling yourself things that really don't matter to you, because we've been carrying other people's thoughts, concepts, narratives, opinions, and wrong views with us all our lives. You can call them parents, you can call them your spouses, you can call them teachers, society, this, that, anybody who's got a loud voice and who has a mic and they have an access straight to your mind and heart, they're the wrong companions. So this sutta also serves to connect you with you, to be honest and mature enough to say what really matters to you. But everybody's talking about that country. I should go there too. I should have a temple there. I should go and live there. I should attend there. Why? The first question should be, how is my mind being affected by this? But you should try this food. Okay, why? Other than its nutritional value, what am I trying to gain out of this? Agitation in the mind? But you have to go and live in Venice, Italy. This is beautiful. This is why. How is that going to help my practice? Really? Is this bringing up more of the akusala states than lessening them? Am I finding it harder to practice sila if I were to go into this home, this house that I'm being offered? Am I getting indigestion if I eat this food, despite the fact that everybody swears by it? I need to ask myself, am I getting indigestion because of this food that everybody swears by? I'm sorry, I can't eat this. Well, every other bhikkhu loves this. I'm sorry, every other bhikkhu is every other bhikkhu. My body tells me I can't eat this. I'm getting sick. I tried eating it, but it's affecting my health. Therefore, I can't eat it anymore, even though it's 5 times more expensive. Let's say, I'm giving you gross examples here. I'm sure we each have our own versions of real life situations where we had 2 options, but we usually go with the thing that gives us more unwholesome states. And if you can take that only with you, the understanding that I have to really watch out for what's good for me, protect myself. This is about protection. This sutta that Venerable Sāriputta is giving here, the discourse, is all about protection, protecting yourself, and to gain happiness as you do that, because you will never find true protection without happiness, without joy. And this path without joy is arid. It's not this path. You're talking about another path altogether. The path of Dhamma must have within it, throughout it, joy. If it's not there in your life, in this practice, whether you're practicing your sila, whether you're practicing just sitting 20 minutes even, meditating, your sati, if you can't find a sense of serenity and peace anywhere through that practice happening in your life, then there's something wrong. You're not practicing the Dhamma that Lord Buddha teaches. There is a misconception, you're misconstrued something. But even that you have to ask and say, is this happening? Am I experiencing something nice in this practice? To be able to ask that question already means that you're following what Venerable Sāriputta is saying here. So I hope this is making sense to you. And again, you can superimpose this into the external world, to the world of actual beings around you, people, friends, companions, individuals you associate with. If you walk away unhappy, something is wrong. During the time that I was mentioning, when in my early 20s, there was a friend of mine at the time, it was a friend, and he used to smoke a lot, and I never smoked. But I used to enjoy his company, our conversations, this and that. We would talk about, esoteric stuff, this, that, religions, this. And despite the fact that, I enjoyed that, every time I came back home, I had to go and shower because I stunk. The smell of cigarettes was all over me. But I had to, in my mind, I was barely like 25, but actually younger than that. I didn't have, I was saying, but the companionship, but he would speak in a way where he would use a lot of swear words. I was like, but look at the juicy part of the end of the conversation. So we talked about this. So I was sacrificing so much, including my time after I came home. I had to shower and clean up, and that's very symbolic also. Eventually, I was like, there's no way. This is, I had to stop this. So the companionship that we have, it could be an actual person, like the one I just gave. And conversely, it could be somebody that you feel richer about life, about yourself, without adding anything, any extra adjectives to make yourself feel good about that interaction, that companionship. To sell yourself the whole idea that I should do this again, versus I must do this again. I must interact. I must go. And you go and see them, even if it's 20, 30, 40 years later, but it feels as if it was yesterday. There's a richness there. That's what happens when we have the Dhamma in each of our hearts. When we come together, when we speak, when we ask questions about sila, samadhi, panya, you don't feel the age of the Buddha's teachings. 26 centuries old teachings. You don't feel that. You don't feel the dust. There's no dust for you because your heart's still resonating to the same frequency as these great masters, as Venerable Sāriputta and the other arahants. So I hope this inspires you to continue your practice and to keep your companionship with yourself solid. See how is your companionship with your thoughts, your narratives, your concepts, your perceptions, the closest companions. And don't be afraid to cut them loose from you. They have nothing to do with your choice in living life happily, joyfully, to attain what is yet to be attained, to realize what is yet to be realized by you in this very life. So I will stop here and see if there are any questions first. Yes.
Thanks very much, Bhante. I recall another statement by Sāriputta Thera in specifically Sevanā Sutta, Majjhima Nikāya 43, whereby he said that Panya Bahitapa Vijnana Parinenyam. In other words, wisdom is to be developed and consciousness is to be understood. So the way I understand it is that we want to associate with, we want to take refuge in wisdom rather than what is brought to us via our six consciousness, six course of consciousness. Thanks very much.
Of course. Yes. It's one of the most trickiest things, apparently, to consider consciousness as something to be understood because we always take it for granted. We're just participants, as if it's like we have no responsibility over the consciousness. It's even for some people hearing that statement, it's preposterous. But it's not. We have been living life like automatons, like robots. Even a robot actually has to process information before they execute another task to react to a certain situation. They do some calculations. We don't. If you have a very advanced robot coming down the stairs, if you throw a cylinder or something underneath the legs, the feet of the robot quickly has to adjust, depending on how sophisticated it is, and then it rebalances itself so it doesn't fall. We don't do that when it comes to our relationships with the six senses. So consciousness. But how can you understand consciousness without wisdom developing? We need to have wisdom develop, discernment to understand, to even ask such questions. It requires the development of discernment in us. We didn't think about these things 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, right? Well, that means the practice is proving its worth. It's helping us. Because unless we have wisdom, we won't see that, in fact, there is no consciousness. What? What do you mean? If you have an eye, and then you have a visible object in an environment where there's a sufficient light, and you are looking at that object, the visible object, and you're not blindfolded, your eyes are open, and your attention is directed towards that object, you're present, you're not daydreaming, you will see the object, which we call eye consciousness. Now, the problem is we take eye consciousness as a separate thing, just like we look at the eye and the visible object as two separate things. Now we just made a third separate thing, didn't we? So this is how we solidify things, objectify, reify things around us, experience. So these become like actual things when they're not. Earlier, when you were sitting in meditation, when I was doing the guided meditation a little bit, I said, when you bring your attention to the body, being present with the body, and all the senses that come in through the body, whatever you're able to see, the flowing in of sensory perception, sensory awareness coming in, sensory consciousness is coming in, typically through the sound that you were hearing because your eyes were closed. The body feeling certain pressure, this, that, temperature, all these things. If we are present to that, to the body specifically, then what you are doing yourself is disengaging yourself from perceptions, your ideas about what is happening. And now I'm talking about manovinyana, mind consciousness, which is the most insidious of all six, the most so-called convincing consciousness. And this is the big one that we have to work with. That's why Lord Buddha says, especially in the first and second books of the Anguttara Nikāya, he's talking about the body being used as an anchor point for you to establish your mindfulness upon. In fact, he says so vehemently, if one would say, this instruction that unless a person bases one's mindfulness practice, meditation upon the body, then the deathless state, nibbana, will be far away, unreachable. Why? Because the body anchors you in what is really happening. Just like the example Venerable Sāriputta was giving about the food one eats. There's agitation in the mind when the person is getting a different set of robes. Maybe in the mind there's comparison, conceit going on, measuring. Well, how come that bhikkhu over there got the new robes? I didn't. The abbot didn't give me the new robes, he gave it to them. Why? They don't need it. I've been wearing the same robes for ages. What's happening? How did it start? How did it start? Well, the mind consciousness took what the eye consciousness was bringing in, and then it latched onto it and says, aha! What is that? Oh, that's a new, oh, I already labeled it. It's a new, nicer, clean looking, perfect. Oh, they would be perfect on me type of a robe perception, sanya. And I took off with it. I no longer am engaged with what that consciousness was bringing to me. It was simple data. The fact was, it was a visible object, and I had an eye, and it so happened that my eyes were in that, my face, my attention was in that direction. If somebody had come and bit my leg off at that moment, I would have immediately dropped the image of that robe being given to that monk, and I would look down and I would scream, ouch. Why? Because I have a bigger problem now. What happened? Tactile perception happened. Consciousness of the body. Now, how can I distinguish between these two? We need to discern. That's what Venerable Sāriputta is teaching us here. When he's delineating the two opposites, is this thing bringing up more unwholesome states, or is this thing bringing up wholesome states? That's what he's teaching us, to be able to decipher. Years ago, when I was an apprentice goldsmith, the boss, they would all collect. There was 7 or 11 of us, actually not 11, 7 or 6 of us. And each of us, because you're working with gold and you're working with metal and steel and iron and wood and all these things, so you have shavings of this. So dust collects, plus the gold dust. and sometimes you have pieces of metal breaking and things like that. And so all of that would be collected before they would pour it into the, I guess, the furnace so that they could melt it rather. And they would give it to me and they would say, okay, go ahead and clean it up. So I would get a hold of a magnet and I would first go over the dust, gold dust, and I would just shake it off to get as much gold, loosened from it so it doesn't get, stuck with the metals. And then I would see so many pieces of metal, actual like steel and iron fillings attached. So I would clean that up, really brush it off, dust it off, and then bring it back and keep doing that with the gold until there was no piece of metal filing there other than gold. So I would clean it up after sometime half an hour of doing this. Then I would pass it on to the older, more professional, more, elder workers, the adults, and they would take it then to the actual processing and they would melt it and then they would make the gold new piece. And then we would work with that. Purified gold now. But what happened? I had to cleanse the gold. I had to clean up the wheat from the chaff, as they say. How often are we doing that? This is another way that I can understand, or I can share with you the understanding of wisdom developing and consciousness are being understood. Because this will not do it itself. Nibbana will not happen to you without you doing the work. Just like nobody came in and gave you even food without you having done something. It's not like hair growing on your head, even if you sit there. You have to shave it constantly because it's a chore. It's a hassle. If you ever have to shave your head and it's a lot of work. It's not like that. So Nibbana is not going to grow like, Kesa Loma like that. It's not going to happen. But we can look at the body, look at everything with sati. That's why sati is such like a Swiss Army knife. You can look at any part of your life with awareness, and to help you, you can use the breath. Absolutely, Lord Buddha used it. You can use the metta if you have that in your heart, but if you don't have it, connect back to the body. One of the fastest ways, use the breath. But don't go into the stories. You need to anchor yourself on something that is neutral. Once you've done that, and you established yourself in calm, serenity, you have santutti there, then check the body carefully. Check the body carefully to see what's happening. Is there agitation? And if there is, don't be afraid to question why. It might have been an encounter you had, but it's lingering on, but you do not know that until you go looking for it. Why? But what did trigger you to go look for it in the first place? You checked the body. Why? Because it didn't feel right. So this requires honesty from us to do a healthy comparison. Wow, sometimes you sit for an hour in meditation, but you're agitated. And we never ask why. Well, who's going to ask why if we don't? Nobody will. The teacher will not know. But we're getting anxious, we're getting angry, we're getting upset. There is restlessness. And then we look outside, we look for other people, other things, other causes, the body, this, that, as an excuse. So honesty has to be present throughout. Otherwise, you might even lie your way all the way to fake Nibbana, which we have a lot of today. People believe they have attained Nibbana, Believe it. They believe it. Which has nothing to do, meanwhile, because they have forgotten the rule number one, which is stay honest, truthfulness. Lord Buddha attained to Buddhahood because he worked on his 10 paramis, his perfections. And, You hear it, you see it in different suttas and actually commentaries, where they say, if Lord Buddha, Bodhisattva Gautama, in his Bodhisattva eons of lifetimes, if he broke one of those other paramis, he did not break one of them. And, one of them was kept intact, and that was his parami of satya, his truth. He was truthful through and through. He would cut off his arm, his head. He would not lie. How many times do we lie in a day to ourselves? Sati teaches us not to anymore. So I will leave you with that. Yes. If there are no more questions, then let's transfer some rays. Akasatha chabumata devanagama hindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu loka sasanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagama hindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha chabumata devanagama hindika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all be well. May you deepen your understanding, your wisdom, your discernment as you unravel layer by layer, like onions, layers of an onion, the consciousnesses that are happening. May you have fun doing it. May you develop a deeper level of joy every day through the help of your sati, your generosity, your dana, your bhavana, your meditation, and the development of sharp, diamond-like wisdom that's unshakable and takes you straight to Nibbana Supreme. May the blessings of the Triple Gem be with you and all your loved ones. Sukhi Hotu. See you next time.